invite Mr. Muzzammil Ayyub Thakur. He is a proud Kashmiri based in the United Kingdom. Mr. Thakur was born in exile but yearns to return to his homeland once it's free. He's the president of the Kashmir Institute of International Affairs and director of the Justice Foundation. Mr. Thakur, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Given the amount of time available, forgive my speed, but I'd like to talk today from a slightly different angle. We know India broke international law. We know that they are in contravention of the Geneva Conventions. We also know they have brazenly flouted the UN resolutions. But often what happens in such great military occupations is we lose the human impact stories from the results of that occupation, subjugation, and oppression. Tragedies become lumped into statistics, and the world community carry on with their day. Shaheed Ashraf Zehrai Saab is not just a statistic. He represented the people of Kashmir and was martyred in jail by the Indian occupation machinery. And it didn't happen in a different era. It happened only months ago. The fake and staged encounter of 3 laborers that happened in my hometown was only last year. And the year before that, when Article 370 and 35A were abrogated, a woman gave birth to a stillborn child on the side of a road because the military occupation wouldn't let her go to the hospital. And days before August 5th, 2019, my own family members, as well as many others, were arrested and taken to different jails around India, where they still languish, some tortured under loudspeaker in the mosques to instill fear and terror in the local population by hearing the screams of young children. I won't be able to summarize the events of 2 years in the next 3 minutes, but what I will say is that despite the crushing Indian occupation, the media blackout, the draconian laws, the non-existent civil liberties, mass gross human rights violations amounting to war crimes, crimes against humanity, ethnic cleansing, and even genocide, the people still have hope. Ambassador Saab, they have hope in you, in the diaspora, in Pakistan, the country formed by Allama Iqbal and Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. We see Pakistan through their vision. And although Kashmir is considered to be an unfinished business on the UN agenda, I put it to you that Kashmir is the unfinished agenda of Allama Iqbal and Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. And it is our collective responsibility to fulfill their legacy and vision and fulfill the expectations, respond to the cries, the prayers of those who have suffered and continue to suffer, those who have sacrificed their lives and were wrapped in green at their burial, those who were jailed for wrapping martyrs in green, those who risked their lives to wave that glorious white and green, that starring crescent at every protest, every Jummah, and every opportunity. That said, we must understand the implications of the Indian agenda of settler colonialism to force demographic change. It's not just our land at risk, it's our Kashmiri identity at stake, our Muslim identity. Our masjids will become mandirs. Urdu and Kashmiri will be replaced by Hindi and Sanskrit, which is already happening, as India have already issued more than 3.5 million domicile certificates in the last 2 years, achieving something that even Israel haven't managed in their 70 years. And as the RSS and BJP leaders have already stated, they will exhume the dead bodies of Muslims from their graves and desecrate the land by building over it, as they did with Babri Masjid. And they've already sold off 400-year-old Shalimar Bagh and Nagin Gardens to India's bidders. Traitors and collaborators like the National Conference and PDP are being rebranded to replace our true legitimate leaders, those who represent the resistance, the sentiments, and the aspirations of Kashmir and Kashmiris. Shaheed Ashraf Zehrai, Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani, Asya Andrabi, Qasim Faktu, Masrat Alam, Fahmida Sofi, Yasin Malik, Mirwais Umar Farooq, Nahida Nasreen, or for that matter, Shaheed Burhan Wani, Shaheed Manan Wani, Shaheed Riaz Neku, Shaheed Junaid Zehrai, and so many others. And if the world believes that Kashmiris would be safe in India by moving out of Kashmir, ask those who study or work in mainland India. And just look at the conditions of minorities who are lynched regularly. Kashmiris have been demonized for more than 70 years under all Indian governments, but under the BJP and RSS, the Indian right have become more radicalized. The BJP government won back-to-back elections on anti-Kashmir, anti-Muslim, and anti-Pakistan sentiments, which has made it open season for Hindutva terrorists to move forward with impunity. And before I close, even the diaspora are not safe. Just a couple of days ago, a so-called Disinfo Lab report, which by the way has nothing to do with the EU Disinfo Lab, it's an Indian instrument, nothing more than that. It published a 100-page dossier against myself and Dr. Fai and others. My ancestral home was raided. My family members were arrested, interrogated, and tortured. And this isn't the first time. I still have relatives in jail and some in unknown locations and others denied access to family and even legal representation. And that's something I have to live with and be burdened with. They suffer for being Muslims, being Kashmiri, resisting occupation, but they also suffer for being related to me, for my actions and my words. But what matters is the narrative from the ground, what they say, what they feel, what they want. Only yesterday, I was sent photos from Kashmir. The first one was from Shaheed Burhan Wani's grave with a poster. It said, Kashmir bleeds green. And I was asked that on this day, this inauspicious day, when India illegally annexed Kashmir, to make sure their voices were heard, in the face of 1 million occupation forces, guns, tanks, jackboots, CCTV, they endangered their lives so the world could hear them. And despite the Indian overtures, be they stick or carrot, despite the risks to their own lives, the ground spoke. They reject India. Kashmir bleeds green. Mr. Ambassador and Excellencies, as Dr. Fai has spent his life for the cause, suffered, sacrificed, I pledge to you, I will not waver, nor will any Kashmiri, wherever they may be. Thank you very much.
I thank Mr. Thakur for that very personal and very moving and important contribution to our discussion.